Allora distribuirci come questo ottimo driver. Por isso. Sempre sendo dólar, se puder. Ele tá todo tempo.
Hello, good evening everyone.
Good evening.
So, once again, here we are on the second Monday of each month, and every second Monday of each month we have our meeting in English. And as we usually do on these days, we have our initial prayer, then we have a reading of a message and a brief comment about it. Then we proceed to the main talk of the night, which is following the Gospel according to Spiritism. And the initial message is usually from the book Our Daily Bread. So before we start reading and giving some comments, let's do what we usually do as well, do a prayer, so that we can be more in contact with the good spirits, and so that we can receive their messages and be able to understand and feel the messages within our hearts more clearly. So if we all want, we can close our eyes and say our own prayers or follow our prayer, which we would say, Dear God, our Creator, our Father, we are so thankful for being able to be here once again, to study, to reflect upon the message of love that our friend, our brother, our Master Jesus came to teach us, showing us the way to the truth and to the light. May tonight's messages and reflections bring some comfort to our hearts and to our minds, in order for us to be able to understand more and more this love that guides us towards a better path of happiness, a better life within and without ourselves. We would like to thank you once again for these blessings, and may these blessings fall upon us all, not only tonight, but always and always. So be it. So, tonight I'll be here doing everything, so I'm going to run to the computer and come back a few times. So tonight we're going to read the message from the book Our Daily Bread. So I'm going to the computer very quickly to change something there, and I'll be back with message number 117. It's entitled In the Family. So here I am back again, and so like I was saying, message 117, entitled In the Family, from the book Our Daily Bread, Chico Xavier, and the spirit who gave the message is the spirit of Emmanuel. And he usually writes a brief verse from one of the Gospels or one of the letters of Paul or or from the Acts of the Apostles, and then he makes a comment about it. So the message that the verse that he takes from one of the letters of Paul today It's from the first letter that Paul wrote to Timothy, and what it is on chapter 5, verse number 4. And Paul says and recommends to Timothy, he recommends, learn first of all to be caring toward your own family and to repay your parents, for this is pleasing to God. So Paul is asking us, or asking Timothy in his letter, but of course he's talking to us as well, about the family. Asking us to be, first of all, caring to our own family and repay our parents, because this is pleasing to God. So Emmanuel goes and makes the following comments. The family struggle is a fundamental problem in human redemption. How can we be benefactors for 100 or 1,000 people if we have not yet learned to serve 5 or 10? This is a logical question that applies to all sincere disciples of Christianity. Good preacher and a bad servant are two titles that do not go together. The apostle recommends being caring amid household activities. However, he is not referring to the caring that weeps without courage when faced with afflictive challenges, but the caring that recognizes problematic areas in the home and strives to eliminate them, awaiting the divine determination at the right time. We know of many brothers and sisters who feel spiritually lonely amongst persons connected to their personal group through body ties, and who, as a result, become very discouraged. It is crucial, however, to examine these temporary corporeal bonds and realize that there are no casual unions in the family household, a place where, for the time being, saving and regenerating trials prevail. Thus, no one should disdain this sacred opportunity of service, even if overwhelmed by incomprehension. It would be a grave wrong to overlook the infinite possibilities of this illuminating endeavor. We cannot possibly help the whole world if we cannot be useful in the little home where the Father's will has temporarily placed us. Before making a great personal contribution to worldwide service, disciples should learn to work on behalf of their family members right now, knowing that such an effort represents an essential achievement. Message 117. So this message is really tough on, I guess maybe I'm speaking about myself, but it's really tough on all of us because Paul goes straight to the matter of the question. He says basically, oh, you're trying to help the whole world to be a better place. But what are you doing inside your family? That's basically the question that he is asking. What type of activities, what type of actions, what type of behavior are you instilling in those who are living with you under the same roof? So that's basically the whole message. That's what Emmanuel tries to make us feel, that kind of a weight over ourselves, so that we maybe wake up about our own responsibilities of what is our part in the job. Because just like everywhere we are, every person where we are has their own personal responsibility. So if we are here at the Spiritist Center and I occupy this post, or I have responsibilities on this end, that's what I need to do. And then the other person needs to do their part, and the other person needs to do their part. But I am responsible for my part. So if I don't do my part here, how can I be really, sincerely, how can I consider myself a real disciple if I'm really not doing what I should be doing in the basic of the basics? It is, how can I be teaching someone or preaching to someone or saying this or that to someone, and then inside myself, inside my family, I am not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's a message that is very, very individual and very particular. It is a reflection that we need to learn to do more, to think about more of really what is my duty, what is my responsibility. Am I doing that? Or am I just like saying, coming to the church, coming to the Spiritist Center, coming to work and trying to change a lot of things, and then my personal development is staying behind because I'm helping a lot of people, but then I am not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Because I am at the family or in the family, like the title of the message says, in the family. If I am there, it's not by chance that I am there. I am there for a reason. Neither one of my kids or my parents or my husband or my wife or the people who I live with are there just by chance, randomly selected. No, we have connections to those, and we have mutual responsibility. If I have responsibility, they also have responsibility towards me. But since I am not responsible for what they do, they will respond for what they are doing. But I am responsible for my part, for my share. Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? So that's why he says in the beginning, good preacher, meaning a person that has a good way of teaching, like a good speaker or a priest, right? A good preacher and a bad servant. So these are characteristics that don't go together. So a good preacher should be a good servant. So if we are, and maybe that's why I said in the beginning, maybe that's why I'm taking it really hard on myself, because I am the one here speaking today. So I am the good preacher, but I have to question myself, am I also a good servant? So that's the question that we need to ask ourselves. We try to do the best outside. We treat everybody well outside. And how are we treating the ones that live within our own houses? How are we dealing with these people? How are we living together with them? So within the family, in the family, we have our probably the toughest job that we have, but it's the one that really makes us change. It's the one that when we do really makes us change. So learn first of all, as Paul says, and I'm reading it again, learn first of all to be caring toward your own family and to repay your parents, to give it back to them. They gave so much they gave so much to you, so now it's your time, it's your turn to give back to them. So repay your parents. And Paul here, of course, is remembering one of the 10 commandments, right? Honor your father and your mother. So he's saying, learn first of all to be caring toward your own family. Take care of them. But it's not just to take care, like give money and then that's it. It's be there, it's be present, it's be a family. And repay your parents, because this is pleasing to God. Of course, it is in the 10 Commandments. So if it's one of the commandments, if it's one of the things that we should strive to do the best, to honor our father and mother, to be there for our family. And we are only here because we had parents. And on the moment that I am a parent, or that I am in a family, I have to honor them the same way that we should honor our kids, and our kids should honor ourselves. So learn, first of all, before doing anything else, learn to love the ones that you're surrounded by in your own family. So that's the message, today's message. In the family, message number 117 from the book Our Daily Bread by Chico Xavier, in the Spirit Guide of Chico Xavier, Emmanuel. It's easy to find the book. You can download it online. You can go to Amazon and buy it. And there's a lot of places that have this book. It's a very, very interesting message, this one here. So, and now we're going to move to our main talk of the night. And like I said before, I'm going on the computer, just change something there, and I'll be back to talk a little bit about chapter number 7, verses or items 11 and 12 that talk about pride and humility. So I'll be right back. So here I am back again, and as we've been doing from quite a while now, we've been going through the Gospel according to Spiritism. Here we have 2 different versions of the book, 2 different translations, 2 different covers, but they're basically the same, naturally. Or if you don't know, the Gospel according to Spiritism was written in French on the first when it came to this earth, and then of course naturally it was translated into, I don't know how many languages, but I don't know, probably close to 100 languages around the world. And these are 2 of the versions that we have in English, both of them from the same editor, the Edisei, but they're slightly different translation. And the ones we can buy online, they also have different versions online, but they all have the same content, the same meaning. So as I was saying before, we are going through the chapters, which is really good, at least in my view, for this first round of studying the Gospel according to Spiritism. And I'm just gonna summarize it quickly here. When we started doing this meeting in English, I don't know, maybe around as of right now, maybe around 10 years ago, we decided to do general lectures of different topics and so on. So after a little while, we decided that, let's start studying the Gospel according to Spiritism. So what we did was, every month, because we have one public talk every month, so every month we decided, let's talk about the whole chapter. So we have a series of already recorded topics and talks about each full chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism. Once we finished the 28 chapters of the book, we decided, now let's go not item by item, but let's go chapter by chapter. And Kardec has put and created a few items and merged them together in one specific title And so that's how we decided to divide. So every month now we go in the chapter following the sequence, and we choose those items that refer to the same topic or to the same subtitle that Kardec gave. So tonight's we are like I said, we are on chapter 7 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. Like we said as well, there are 28 chapters, and chapter 7 is entitled "Blessed are the Poor in Spirit." And we, I think, already have like 5 or 6 discussions about this chapter. And tonight we're talking about items 11 and 12, which Kardec puts together under the subtitle Pride and Humility. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about 2 messages. One from Lacordaire, which was a French religious person. If I'm not mistaken, he was a Protestant person, but he was well known and well versed in Christianity. And we are going to hear or talk a little bit about the other message, which is from Adolphe. That's his name, and he was a bishop. Not in France, but in Argel, which was like a country in the north, if I'm not mistaken, in the north of Africa, which is very close to where France is. So they had like close relationships. If I'm not mistaken, it was a colony of the French people at the time, or a long time ago. But he was a bishop. He was from the Catholic Church at that time, or when he discarnated, and then he gave his message, and he signed Adolphe, Bishop of Argel, of course in French, not in English. In this, I wanted also to point, by saying this, I also wanted to point that every chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism, and I know that some of you already know this, but I think that because these talks in English, they can be, or can reach, or can be for people who sometimes never even heard of Spiritism, don't know the books. So I'm just explaining more or less how the book works. So the Gospel according to Spiritism, usually every chapter, what Allan Kardec does is he grabs messages, topics or items or verses from the Bible, puts them there, and then according to the Spiritist teachings, he goes and makes comments on those topics. So just pretty much like we did before the talk here when we read the message from the book Our Daily Bread. So for example, in this chapter, last month we talked about Matthew chapter 11 verse 25. And then Kardec goes and makes a comment on that specific part of the Bible. And that's how the beginning of the chapter is. He gets parts of the Gospel, of one of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, John, or Luke, sometimes from the Acts of the Apostles, sometimes a bit more rarely, he uses some pieces of the Old Testament, and then he makes comments on those. Of course, with the Spiritist interpretation of what those verses mean. Then after he goes through some of these, he will go now to messages that were received from spirits that verse or that talk about those topics or similar topics to that. And then he organizes everything in one chapter. So this chapter, almost every chapter, starts with these messages that are written by him, and then go to messages that were received spiritually through psychography, through a medium and a spirit that came and gave those messages. And then he transcribed those messages at the end of the chapter. And then those spirits talk about some topics. Tonight's topic, pride and humility, he chose two messages from two different spirits. And actually, let me see the dates or the years. In 1862, one message was received in 1862 and the other message was received in 1863 in two different cities across Europe. One was received in Constantine and the other one was received in Marmande in 1863. And he doesn't put the name of the medium. He only puts the name of the spirit because the medium is not important. Actually, the name of the person is not even important. But what's the message? What does the message contain? So, I know I'm not talking about the main topic, but for some reason today I felt that I needed to give this explanation. So it's a more fuller explanation of how the Gospel according to Spiritism works in every chapter. So after this, let's talk a little bit about the topic, pride and humility. Every time that I personally am going to talk about pride and humility, therefore, or that I am thinking about it, one question comes to my mind. Nancy is a mother of two, right? I am a father of two, right? But we have probably kids or people that we know of, that we take care of. Cris is a mother of two. And when we see something that a person that I'm taking care of, and when we see a person doing something really good, achieving a goal, like achieving something that they really wanted to do, say graduated or got his first job or was able to finish something that was really hard, but he was able or she was able to do it, we feel that sense of accomplishment ourselves, right? We look at them and we say, I am so proud of you, right? I am proud that you were able to achieve it, right? So I have this sense of pride. I have this sense of and the word is that's the word that we normally use, right? We feel proud of the person. So at the same time, I always struggle in my mind to find this idea of having this feeling of being proud of somebody, of having pride of my son, or of my daughter, or of my student, or of my friend who did this and I was able to see that he was struggling and I'm proud of him. I'm so proud of you that you achieved this. I'm so proud that you graduated. And at the same time, when we talk about pride and humility, we compare these two things, and then we say that pride is something that we should not feel, that we should not have. I have this struggle within myself. And why? Maybe because we use the same word for two different things, right? Because this type of pride, this type of saying I am proud of you is not the same type of being proud, of having pride, of being vain, which we could also use into some sense. And I'm always struggling, like I said, I'm always struggling to understand what is pride when the spirits say that we should not have this feeling of pride, that we should be humble, that we should have humility and should not be proud and should not have pride. So why do they do that? And so what is that? And so I was trying to look. I was looking for the words and looking at the dictionary to try to once again to go through the word and try to understand where the word came from, so that I could say something about it. And I found something, and here is just a curiosity for you all, and for myself. I learned this today. The word for pride in Portuguese, in French, in Italian, and in Spanish, for example, and these other languages are Latin-based languages in general. Of course, I wouldn't be able to say perfectly in other languages other than Portuguese, but the word is orgulho, or orgulho, or something similar to this. It's O-R-G-U-L. They all start with the same. So even in French start the same. In Italian, I think it starts close enough as well. In Portuguese and in Spanish, it's O-R-G-U-L. That's how it starts, O-R-G-U-L. And then it has the ending is a little different in each language. But what I found is that while I was looking for the word in English, I found that there was a word in English that was used, but it's ancient and it's not used anymore. And I never saw it written anywhere. It's exactly that. It's O-R-G-U-L. And it means pride. But it's archaic, meaning it's something that's really old, nobody uses it anymore, probably there in 1500s when Shakespeare was writing his text, or even before that. So it's a word that's not being used anymore, and it's from that influence of the Latin language, or probably maybe from German as well, or at least that's how they try to explain. But it's not being used anymore. But what I found interesting is that this word, right, orgulho, I don't know how to pronounce it in English, I never heard it. It means, the OR part means out, means to the outside, to out. And the part, the G-U-L, the G-U-L, it means to boast, to be more than what you are. So the word pride that relates to this word means originally, from the beginning, it's probably somebody was trying to say, hey, you're saying more than what you should. You're trying to be more than what you really are. So that sense of the word pride is not the sense of accomplishment of the feeling when I am proud of my son. It's not the same feeling. It's not saying more than what you are. No, it's actually I am happy because you achieved what you wanted. I'm honored by what you did. I feel great because you were able to finish what you started. But it's not that feeling of I am more than what you are. I am more than what people think I am. No, it is actually, in my mind, it is actually the sense of humility, of recognizing that he is what he wants to be. Not that he's more or that he's less than what he wants to be. That he exactly what he wanted to be. Which connects, of course, naturally to the word humility. Because the word humility, on the other hand, comes from a word that means ground, soil, earth, where we all came from, where everything that grows from the earth. All the plants, the animals, nothing that we have, or everything that we have, come from here. We eat what comes from here, right? We survive because we have this coming from here. So we are all, in that metaphorical sense, we all come from the earth. So we are all grounded to the earth. So humility is taking that is understanding that we all come, and we will all come back to that same thing. It's not that we while we are awake, let's say, we are on top of it. Yeah, but when we die, we come back. So there's this leveling element. That's what humility is. Humility is to remind us, the word humility reminds us that we all come from the same element, which is, in Spiritism, we say it's matter. It's at least our body. It's matter. Everything came from dust, as the old saying says, and will end up in dust. So we are all one and the same in this level. Although in the past people would say, oh, those blue bloods, those people that have blue blood. Nobody was ever found having blue blood in the world. And if they have, they are sick. So they're even worse. But usually, and that's how they used to say, no, white people, or not white, because there's nobody that's really white. People are pink most of the time, right? Because if my skin is not dark enough, the blood will make my skin look pink, but we call ourselves white, or I am not even considered white, I'd say. But because of the way the veins look in white people sometimes, it looks like they're kind of bluish. So they say that they are blue bloods because usually monarchy or the reigning people were all white. And then people on the streets are always dirty, which was true. There was no water for people to take baths all the time. So they are darker. And then, of course, you won't be able to see the veins as clear as the other people. And who would dare to go to a king and say, let me see the color of your blood? It would be dead. So there's no... So when Lacordaire starts talking about this topic, he starts using these types of arguments and reminding us of these ideas, because that's usually how we feel when we are privileged in comparison to other people. So as I was reading these texts, I was thinking about, we are here, 2020 already. We basically don't have this type of situation anymore of a king that treats people badly in our day-to-day basis. Maybe we hear some stories about a country far away from us, but we don't see this all the time. A person that really is, oh, I am much better than you are, you're just like a the scum of the earth, you worth nothing. We don't see this very frequently. So it felt to me a little bit as if this text was a little bit too old in that sense of the words that they're using. So I started to think about, okay, this situation of a king or of a very rich person that treats a poor person very, very badly, and it's not in my day-to-day basis. Okay, but I started asking myself, is this feeling of being superior to another gone? That's what I started thinking. Is this feeling of me or anyone else feeling superior to another person gone? And I realized, and I guess you might realize as well, that no, it is not gone. I was listening to a friend at work the other day, and she was being very loud about it, and she was saying that she was talking to this person, and she is a counselor in the town that she lives in, so lots of people come to talk to her to say stuff about the town, and this needs to be done, that needs to be done, comes with ideas to improve this or to change that. So she was like really going through this guy who came to her and was trying to pitch her an idea of to do something. And while she was speaking, she was like, I wouldn't say that she was angry with the guy, but she was really like, how can a person think that that he's saying is okay? And he was saying, oh, and of course I don't know the full story. I'm just going to say some of the words that she used when she described him when she was listening to what he was saying. And she said, oh, we should do this to avoid this type of people to get close to this area or to this thing, because these people that come from other countries, they are really dumb. They don't know what they're doing. And it was so interesting. I mean, because she was saying and said, I don't believe that there's a person that still thinks that, and that's what she was saying. And she was, oh, but maybe it's not like that. Maybe you're not like understanding right or something. And she was trying to, and in the end, she said, yeah, let's see. I don't know if I'll be able to do anything. And then she got to the office. She said, of course that I'm not going to do anything, but it bothers me that there's a person that in this age looks at a person just because the person doesn't speak your language. And you think that the person has less intelligence than you? Where is that? Where is that disconnection of just because the language is not the same, you think that the other person is not as smart as you are? So it means that we are still not understanding the humility of the situation, that we all come from the same point. Thinking that because I speak, if it were like Dutch or German, and the other person was whatever speaking French, and the person say, oh, so that we use a distant example. Oh, I am German let's say in 1939, 1940, right? I am German. I am white. All the Jews, they are all bad people. Not comparing the guy to a Nazi, not saying that. What I'm saying is that there are extreme examples, but on our day-to-day, how are we feeling towards other people? If I know a little bit more about whatever, I know a little bit more about cleaning houses, then a person comes to me and says, right, Christiane says to me, oh, you know nothing. Because she knows and she's the best house cleaner in the universe. And then now I am not. Right? So she feels like superior to me, and she is, but you know what I mean? So using this type of example can probably bring us to ourselves and make us think if we think of ourselves better than other people. Because that's the big point about humility and pride. Is what is the thing that makes me feel that I'm more than the other one? And if I can think of something, it's on that point that I need to change. Because it doesn't need to be that I'm a king and the other one is a servant. Because there is no more kings and servants in our day-to-day basis. So I could read the message from the gospel and say, okay, they're talking about the poor and the rich. I'm not rich. So if I'm not rich, then I am the humble one. But we know that there are lots of poor people that are pride, that have pride, have a lot of pride. And there are a lot of rich people that may be the humblest person that you've ever seen. Because they really don't think about being more than anybody else. They realize that the money that they have is not what they are. But there are some people that are very poor, and because they feel like everybody owes them something, they feel like they are the best of the others, and so and then treat everybody badly. So it's not about what I have or what I don't have, physically, materially speaking. It's about how do I behave, how do I see that I am in life with or without what I have. Is actually what I am, not what I have. And usually when we talk about pride and humbleness, we tend to look towards what we have that makes us humble. Oh, he lives in that humble house. Oh, this is my humble. Meaning that I have something that makes me humble. But actually, no. Having more or less, if I am humble, I will always be humble. If I'm prideful, if I'm very proud in that bad sense of life, of what I have, it doesn't matter if I have a lot or if I don't have anything. I will have that pride inside of myself. And we sometimes tend to use this idea of being proud of a person said, oh no, I'm proud of myself. And it's not wrong to be proud of yourself, of accomplishing something. Of course it is not wrong. I am proud of myself that I was able to raise my kids. I am proud of myself I mean, I set myself to do something and I did something. I have to recognize that I was able to do it, and that is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with it. When it starts to become a little more like in a gray area, as when I start comparing myself in my job with other person's job and start feeling more or less than the other person, and this leads me to behave differently, then it's the problem. It's when that relationship starts to change between people. Because our lives here are not just for myself. My life is not just for me. My life is my relationship with all of the people that I live with, like we said in the beginning with the message, in the family or in the workspace or in school or outside. It's that relationship that makes me grow. So how are my relationships being affected by what I believe I am? Benjamin Franklin, which is one of the founding fathers of this nation, I like to repeat that quite a while, but at this very moment I think it's very appropriate. He, in his autobiography, he writes this story where he says that he created for himself a list of virtues that he needed to be. So he creates this list of virtues, and he creates a list of 12 virtues. And he said that he would practice those virtues one every week. And then he decided to get this list and show this list of virtues to a friend of his who was a Quaker priest. Quakerism is a religion. It's not very common these days anymore. It was a little bigger when he was around in the 1700s. Or before that, no, around, I think, in the 1700s. So he gives this list of virtues to this priest, and the priest looks at him and he says, this is great. I love this list of virtues. But if I were you, I would add one more to that list. And I'll tell you why. All these virtues that you wrote up there, and there was like temperance, so don't eat too much, don't eat until you, and there are be patient, and then there are 12 of them. I don't remember the list, but I remember the last one, because that's the big point of the whole thing. Is he says, I have to tell you something. Everybody that I know that know you, when they are talking about you, there's one thing that they say about you that you may not be aware of, because I don't believe that you really are what they're saying, but that you apparently leave that impression on other people. People tell me that they feel that you are arrogant when you're speaking, because you know so many things. You are such a traveled person. And he was like one of the most intelligent people that ever walked on this earth. He wrote tons of books. He knew different languages. He traveled. He was in France for a while. He wrote the Declaration, part of the Declaration of Independence, or one of the big documents of the United States, and he is on a $100 bill today. And so he was, not at the time, but today he is. He was like this person that when you're with him, it's basically nobody else talks, because he has so many things to say that people just want to hear him. But at the same time, it makes people look at you and say, as if you are showing off, as if you are using the word that we described in the beginning, or outside, boasting, speaking too much, ghoul, pride, as if you are being prideful, as if you have a lot of pride. So I would recommend, says the Quaker priest to him, I would recommend that you add a 13th virtue to that list: humility. So out of all the 12, he added, after all the 12, he added a 13th virtue: humility. And after each virtue, he writes a small sentence of what that virtue means to him and what he wants to accomplish. Under humility, he writes, imitate Socrates and Jesus. That's what he writes under humility. And then he says, I am, and after that day, I added it to my list. And what I did from that day on was, every week, I would practice one of those virtues. And I will focus on one of those virtues. Not that I'm not going to try to do the other ones as well, but I'm not going to worry about the other ones,
because I have to be better in one. I cannot be better at all of them at once, so I'll practice one. Next week, I'll do the other one. Since every year has 52 seconds, 52 weeks, 13, then 13, 26, and then 13, and then 13, 52. So it's 4 weeks a year he would practice humility. 4 weeks a year he would be more focused on this. And then he did this for a little while in his life. That's in his autobiography. Of course, I added a few things here out of my head, and I read it a while ago, so I can't remember everything. But it is there in his autobiography. And it is very, very interesting that he points out that he would imitate Socrates and Jesus. That shows something about this, the mind of his mind, but also shows a lot about who he thinks Socrates was and who he thinks Jesus was, how their actions were, and what he thinks of what humility is. Socrates, for example, he was very smart, very, very smart. He was actually charged to be killed because he was too smart. He was so smart that people didn't know what to do with him. So they had to kill him because what can I do? How can I fight you? I mean, nothing that I can say, you will always have an answer to what I had to say. So one of the most famous stories about Socrates is his wife coming to him and asking him, but Socrates, they condemn you, but you didn't do anything. You didn't do anything and they condemn you. And he looks at her and he says, so what would you want? Would you want them to be right and condemn me because I did something wrong? So I am happy because I didn't do anything wrong. So I'm not going to do anything. Because if I fight with them, then on the way that I see, that's my interpretation, I'm going to be wrong. Because they hold the law. So I am not wrong. Would you rather I be wrong and they condemn me because they are right? So it's better that they are wrong than I am. And I accept it. And I'm not going to make them feel like they are bad because I think that I am right. I'm just going to accept it. He didn't say that he was more than what he was, but he didn't say that he was less than what he was. He said what he really think he were. And that's what humility is not to be more than what you are, but not also to be less than what you are. It's to be who I am. The problem is we don't know who we are. Then most of the times we are either going too low, thinking that we don't deserve this, or going too high. Oh, I deserve all this because I am this. Do you know who you're talking to? What is this question? So, trying to get to that point of humility is tough. Because it is hard to know who we are. It is really hard to know who we are. We shouldn't be subservient to the point of doing anything and everything. But also we should not be fighting everybody for any small things. We need to learn how to and what to do. When people would come to talk to Jesus, he would talk with them the way they were talking to him. Because he was not more nor less than what they were. If you're asking something, you're going to receive an answer. If you're asking in this level, you're going to receive the answer on that level. If you're asking on this level, you're going to receive it on this level. You're going to... He is talking to the Spirit at the level of the Spirit. He's not talking to the person that he is seeing, to the physical person that he is seeing. He's talking to us as a spirit, who we really are. And that's the tough part. So we can only learn this by looking at higher examples. Like Benjamin Franklin says, imitate Socrates and Jesus. They are higher level examples. I can only get better if I focus on a higher level than what I am. Otherwise, I'll always get stuck to the same point. Right now, to finish, I am doing some routine exercises to improve my health. So, on the wall, there's a scale of effort with numbers, and it's called the Borg scale. I guess you can look up this on the internet. It's called the Borg scale, B-O-R-G. And it starts, I think, at 6, at least on this chart, starts at 6 and goes down to 20. So 6, 7, of course, and then there are the levels of exercise. So the very first one at 6 is light exercise. So it is, say, you're just walking, or pacing normally, no effort, nothing. You're just walking and so on. Then it keeps going down, and then goes light, and then less light, and then moderate, and then hard or somewhat hard, and then hard, harder, very hard, extremely hard, and then goes up down to 20. So 20 is the most effort that a person can do it. But what I find interesting about this scale is that what is light for me, it might be extremely hard for Leo. And it can be like moderately high or hard for Nancy and lighter for Chris. It's not a set scale for everybody. It's a generic scale, right? So if I'm out of shape, say, and I start doing it, what's going to happen is, if I say I'm on a treadmill or I'm on a bike, right? I jump on a bike and I'm there doing my bike exercise, right? So I start like biking 2 minutes. I start like feeling, and then I look at the scale, and then I say, oh, 2 minutes. Now I'm starting to get tired. And then Leo is right there by my side doing the same thing. In 2 minutes, he's like, doesn't even feel anything yet. So the scale is the same, but me and Leo are completely different persons. One day I might get to where Leo is, but I can only get where Leo is if I push myself to be. There's no way that I'm going to get him, make him touch me, and I'm all of a sudden at the same level of exercise that he is. And we all understand this. We all understand this. Because that's how it is. For me to go a level higher, I have to push myself to be a level higher. The question is, do we want to be at a higher level? Because if we want, that's what we need to do. If we don't want, then it's our choice. There's nobody pushing or not. I mean, I am going to be the one doing it. But I know that there will be a consequence to doing or not doing it. And I have to be aware of these. Pride and humility is the same thing. To me, exactly the same thing. There's a scale. Benjamin Franklin sets his scale, or his target, Jesus and Socrates. That's the top. And that's what he wants to get to. Will he be able to? Maybe. How long it will take? I don't know. But that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to push himself, or he was trying, and he probably keeps trying to push himself to be out of this zone of thinking that he is humble and noticing that he is not humble because the priest came to him and said, look, you are not humble. People are looking at you and they're saying that you are not humble. So pay a little more attention to that. What this message, these two messages come to me and tell me is, and make me and ask me is, are you as proud as who in the world? Or the other way around, are you as humble as who in the world? So how much of humbleness do I want? How much of pride, that bad pride, do I want out of me? That's my decision. That's how I need to start looking at it and thinking about myself. Who am I? Who do I think that I'm better? Am I better than Chris? Am I better than my daughter, than my wife? Am I better than my boss? Or who? So, what's my feeling in terms of who I am? Where do I want to be? What do I want to do with my humbleness or my pride inside of myself? So, I hope that we can all take a little bit out of this, and I would, as I always do, I would highly recommend that you get the Gospel According to Spiritism and read these messages, because, of course, as usual, there's no way that we can cover everything that they say, and these are two very, very good messages. Messages number 11 and 12 on the Gospel According to Spiritism, chapter number 7, Pride and Humility. So with this, we reached the end of our talk here, and we're going to have the passes now with Chris and Nancy, and right after that we will do our final prayer, and right after that a few announcements, and we will all head back home.